And we have started. Oh, we just hit 12 Central. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Greetings, everybody. Greetings. We had a record sign up today of like 130 something people. So we got 25 people, and then those people that come in late because of they had a work meeting to end up or something like that, wrong priorities. They'll be joining in as they come in. Please do go on mute. I'll be muting some people as I hear some noise, but do help me out. Let's get started. Welcome to the Agile Austin Leaders Special Interest Group. This is a SIG. February 5th, I like to say that again and again when we start to make sure you're in the right place. Okay, so great to have everybody here with us today. Max Akesi, live from Austin. I'll introduce myself a bit more afterwards, but please, we have folks that join from all sorts of places. So as you can see in the chat, I already put, Austin is where I'm from, right, where I'm joining from, and my role. I'm an enterprise agile coach. And by any chance, if anybody has job opportunities they're aware of or they're seeking or whatnot, do feel free to share, okay? Now, somebody said that I'm sounding static. Is that just their experience, or are there other people also that are hearing me
You
static?
are sounding staticky.
Yeah.
And I'm the only one that is sounding staticky right now?
So Max, you're staticky, but we can understand you.
Okay, so why don't we just push through it and then I stop talking? It's encouragement for me to hurry up and then shut up. So you are being recorded, folks. You are being recorded. So if you do not want to be recorded, feel free to turn off your camera and go on mute. But we put this little spiel in the meetup posting, and we will be sharing this. We have an Agile Austin YouTube channel, which we're starting to post a lot of stuff on there. So just to be aware. Agile Austin. This group is part of the larger Agile Austin. I'll be sending this deck out, so I don't want to go through all the details, but we do a lot of fun activities here at Agile Austin. We have over 5,000 people in the meetup group. We have about 150 paid members, et cetera, and we just try to share the love and knowledge of Agile, okay? Special shout out to our sponsors. I mean, Agile Velocity. If there's anybody from Agile Velocity here, put it in the chat, right? I don't know if founder and prior CEO David Hawks was here. I hear that was going to join. If you are, a shout out to David and co and everybody, and Agile Rising, Eliason, etc. Our sponsors are just awesome. They've helped us out through the years, so shout out to them. And this is not the only special interest group we have in Agile Austin. So the easiest way to get some information about all of them is to just go to the Agile Austin meetup group and sign up. We've got DevOps, coaching, Scrum Master, a variety of special interest groups, depending on what you are interested in, okay? Our purpose, why we're here at the SIG. We want to bring people together and learn and share about leading Agile adoptions and transformations. That is our main thing. Whomever it is that is trying to lead that adoption, right? It could be an executive, a tester, a developer, whatever it is. If you want to learn something or share something, that's what we do here in having to leading Agile adoptions and transformations. I am the founder of this group and the facilitator, Max Akesi. It started in 2011. It's awesome. We've met every month for like almost a decade. And I'm an Agile coach. I'm an enterprise Agile coach at Whole Foods. Having a blast is Whole Foods was acquired by Amazon, so we're always trying to grow our online e-commerce presence and the challenges with that. And I'm also the Agile Austin Vice President. I'm on the board. So if anybody ever wants to talk about Agile Austin, the SIG and everything, feel free to ping me, right? If anybody has topics they'd like to share in the future or things they want to hear about, sometimes people want to hear about a topic and just contact me and we will find the speakers for that. We always have a speaker. We always have a theme every month, and we meet the first Friday of every month. And even though we don't meet in person anymore, shout out to Agile Velocity for having been our host for years. If for those of you that might not have ever come to our SIG in person, oh, the days. Do you remember what it was like when you'd meet and you'd like sit next to each other without a mask and breathe close to each other and all of that and hug and whatnot? So I really miss seeing a lot of people. And here's been our trip in the last few years. But I do have to say, it has been incredible how, like today, we've had speakers from way outside of Texas. We've had speakers from South Africa and England, etc. We've had people that have joined from like all continents. And this has been an incredible experience because it's really connected folks with the same Agile passion across the world. So this is great. I think it's going to be very tough to go back to having to meet in person, besides the fact that right now we have 55 participants, and before we like maxed out at 35 because of our space in our room and just the breadth of knowledge that we bring together. It's just been incredible. It's just been incredible. And thank you again for all of you that take time from your schedule and all that's going on to be here. Hats off to you. Very quickly before I pass off to Paul and Dave, they're going to talk about their stuff, introduce themselves. Very eager to hear about business agility. It's a big deal, so do share. I am going to be taking the place of Daniel Dina from London because he's not going to be able to make it in March. So really excited to be able to slip in my 3-step leading Agile transformation approach that I've been perfecting in the last few years and speaking at conferences and sessions at. So really happy to bring it here as kind of like a backup to that. Jatin from Canada is going to be here in April and talked about emotional intelligence and how to lead through that with agility. And in May, Johanna, which I believe is from the Northwest. If Johanna, you're out there and you want to correct me, please do. But Johanna will be talking to us in May about having to lead and serve others, focusing on the team rather than the individual. And what's going to be
go outside and shovel by yourself.
Oh, I thought it was Johanna for a second, but it might be somebody else. So what is very awesome, the lesson I'll say, is that we've had this topic in the past about having to be team focused instead of focus on the individual. Please go on mute, folks. Please go on mute. And a big part of that is compensation. How to compensate in a focus from a team perspective and not just an individual perspective. And she's going to touch on that too. So go sign up as soon as these come up, folks. And now let's get to Paul and Dave that are going to talk to us about Culture Shift 101, enabling a culture of business agility. Dave and Paul, thank you for being here today. A round of applause for Dave and Paul. David, start off. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting us. Hey, Max, can you allow us to share a screen?
I am stopping to share right now, and that should enable you to share yours. Try.
Excellent.
It's very hard for me, but I'm going to be quiet now. Very hard, but I'm going to be quiet now.
All right, there you go. Is my screen showing?
Yes.
All right. So thanks everyone for joining, and thanks Max for inviting us. So today we want to talk about culture and its impact on business agility. And when we think about it, a lot of organizations that are going through transformations or have gone through agile transformations, they're just not really getting the value that they would expect out of an agile transformation. They're not getting those business outcomes or really seeing the value. And part of that is because of the impact that culture has on an organization. The thing to remember is that all organizations have a culture, right? The question is, though, is the culture that you have enabling or is it hindering business agility? So today we're going to share some thoughts on the impact of culture on business agility and look at how do we analyze our current culture and really consciously shape it to enable a more agile business and enable agility. So as we go through this, culture is a huge topic. We're only going to be able to scratch the surface, but hopefully it'll get you starting to think in the right direction. So when we talk about business agility and what that means, we have to first talk about the culture. So culture is really just the culmination of all the values, the practices, beliefs, the behaviors of the group of people. So in your organization, it's all the norms and the different behaviors and things that hold true. And as leaders or people who coach leaders, it's important to remember that a lot of that culture is shaped from the way leaders behave, and the leaders kind of set the tone, they walk the talk. So here's an area where we can really affect the organization's culture by looking at some of the way that the people behave and the processes we put in place and the way leaders respond and what they value and what they reward. So when we think about waterfall and agile and moving to the transformations, we often just really focus on the practices, right? We set up the teams, we say, do this stand up, create this backlog, do this retrospective, and we forget that that whole process and everything gets done through people. And people are bound by this culture, the set of norms and values and shared beliefs. So if we don't start addressing that underlying value, what I like to call almost the operating system, the culture is that operating system on which the teams, the organization run. If that operating system isn't compatible with an agile way of working, it's not going to get very far. So we need to first put the right operating system in place, and then it makes the agile transformation a lot easier and we start getting more and more value out of agile. Now, there are some challenges that some recent surveys and analyses have seen about agile transformations, and a lot of it centers around culture. So it's recognized that culture is a big issue when it comes to agile transformations and getting value out of agile. So the 14th annual State of Agile report, 44% said that organizational culture is at odds with agile values. So there's a conflict there. We're not going to be as successful as we want to be. It's going to be an uphill battle. KPMG survey in 2019, 59% of respondents said that culture is a key challenge. Gartner CIO survey, 46% culture is the biggest barrier to a transformation. McKinsey & Company recently did a study, 76% said transforming the culture was the biggest challenge for any kind of transformation. So it's recognized that this is a big problem out there. The key is, what do we do about it? So we could recognize it, but we need to be able to do something about it. So with that, I want to introduce my kind of fellow culture guide here, Paul Pazderski. Paul is an enterprise agile coach, a mentor, trainer, author. He has a PhD in organizational development. So he's Dr. Paul, but we call him Coach Paul. His dissertation for his PhD was in agile transformation. He's worked with organizations such as TD Ameritrade, McDonald's, Walgreens, AT&T, State Farm, Capital One, which is where I met him. At home, he's a dedicated husband, father of 3 and grandfather to 5. One of his favorite pastimes is bicycle riding, even in our cold Chicago winters. Paul?
And I had to unmute. Thank you, Dave. And my partner, Dave Saboe, is a fellow enterprise agile coach, an author, a podcaster, passionate about helping individuals, teams, and organizations to do the best work of their lives. He believes that in order to get value from an Agile journey, you need to create the environment and conditions for the teams to succeed. Dave is a frequent presenter at Agile conferences. He worked with Capital One on their Agile transformations. As he said, that's where we met, and is now working at AIM Specialty Health to advance their Agile journey. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you.
So to start us off, we have a exercise, a quick poll. And the question is, how does your organization's culture affect your Agile journey? Dave just shared the link to the poll, which is on AHA Slides. So if you click that link in chat, you'll get the poll and you can start answering the questions, and he's sharing now the results. So as people answer, things will pop up, and feel free to vote any way you want. No impact for one, low impact for the next answer, two, some impact in the middle, much impact for four, and complete impact for five. So we have about 28 people answer, 29, so we're pretty close to complete. Give it a couple more seconds, and I think we're good.
Yeah, so in the
Don't be-
times that Paul and I have shared this, we've never seen anyone say no, little, or some impact. So we all recognize that culture has a big impact here. It's a key cornerstone to enabling the right behaviors that we want to see and aligning the values and principles that we have with Agile.
All right. So as Dave mentioned, we will not be able to cover everything that we have, but wait, we will share at the end the link to where we would like you to engage with us. We have a website and we're planning a longer workshop, so stay tuned for that. So we're going to open now a little deeper with one of the popular culture models, the Lalo culture model, which uses or shares with us 5 culture archetypes. And each of those culture archetypes is designated as a color, starting on left, the oldest culture, and ending on the right with kind of the future culture or the future of culture. But as we're going through this, please remember, these are archetypes, these are models. Real cultures in real organizations are a mixture of these 5. There is no such a thing as a pure culture. So please always remember that. We're talking about archetypes, models, something that can be abstracted from the real. So let's talk about the first one on the far left. This is a red culture, also called the wolf pack or autocracy. It is the oldest paradigm still in use. And it's been dominant for centuries, I really should say millennia. And again, it's based on the model of a wolf pack. It comes from our tribal heritage, and it is based in power, power-centered, powerful leader, top-down compliance, and it is motivated through fear. It is the strongest culture when people are in chaos, because then you need that strong hand to guide them. The breakthrough ideas of a red culture: command authority, leaders set the directions, members follow toward the leader's goal. There is division of labor, individuals specialize for the group. And so some examples would be gangs, mafia, cartels, and tribal militias, terrorist cells, for example, and so forth. The second culture, the Ember culture, is based in bureaucracy, and the model is an army. It evolved from Red after fear and chaos subsided, and still has the strict hierarchy, strong top-down command and controlled approach. It focuses on stability. The breakthrough ideas of the Ember culture are long-term perspective, strong process, formal roles and responsibilities. Examples are governments, public schools, again, old style public schools, traditional churches, and old style military. The next culture is the Orange culture. This is the predominant culture in organizations today. It evolved when Ember couldn't adapt fast enough. The metaphor of the Orange culture is the machine. It's based in reason, skills, intelligence, and creativity. Competition is key. Profit and growth are key. Objective, so you have management by objective. Some freedom in strategy still coming up. Breakthrough ideas, innovation, accountability, meritocracy. Individuals can rise as long as they prove themselves. So again, traditional large organizations like corporations, public universities, and such. The next culture is our favorite, the green culture. Green, again, because this is where now we're talking about the focus on family values, sometimes called familyocracy. Agile and lean are rooted in the green culture. It evolved from Orange, where people were seeking more meaning from their work. They are focused on delighting the customers, share intrinsic values, everyone's high engagement. The breakthrough ideas were balance all stakeholders' needs, customers, employees, partners, shareholders. Culture over strategy is a common perspective. All true empowerment through and through. Consensus focused, alignment focused. Some examples nowadays would be, you may have heard of Southwest Airlines, Ben and Jerry's. Again, Agile and lean organizations are striving for it because this is the one that is most aligned with what Agile talks about. And now we start looking into the future. What's in the future? What's possible? So we come to the Teal culture. This is holacracy. This, again, evolved from green or is evolving from green. People work without hierarchical structures. The metaphor is a living system. Anti-fragile organizational structure. Flat, no hierarchy. Or interlocking circles of evolving roles. Shared higher goal or higher purpose of making work a better place. Distributed decision-making. Authority is granted to all. Very participative, using advice process. Some breakthrough ideas, wholeness at work, spiritual, intellectual, creative, self-management, evolutionary purpose. Some examples you may have heard about is Patagonia, Morningstar, Bartzark. Again, very few organizations, so this is an evolving model, and I'm sure after Teal, somebody will come up with a even more evolved model to the right. So these are our models, and again, our focus, or we could say our soft target, is the green agile culture. Why green and agile? Why green and agile align? Well, because they kind of align in values, principles, and purpose. Now, what we are going to do is another exercise. So as you can see, among these 5 cultures, you can choose one. Which one is predominant in your organization? And again, we're using, what are we using, Dave?
We're using AHA slides. So I just put the link in there again. And what we're going to look at is which of those archetypes is predominant in your organization. And as Paul said before, organizations could have different pieces of these. There might not be a purely orange, purely amber, purely green, but what does it look like in your organization or maybe in your team? What's most prevalent? So we have some good responses coming in now. Looks like a wave coming in.
I really like how these polls work. You can just get the visual effect with the slides.
That's why we use them.
Nobody works in a Red Wolf.
I
You
do
got
see
some.
some.
There
You
couple.
got some.
There's
We have
one.
a few gang members or mafia members out there.
Or at least it feels like it.
Don't post your job opportunities at your company if you're in the Red Wolf, please. Okay, don't.
But it's not surprising that right now we're seeing a lot of folks in that orange area, not a lot in the teal, a few in the green. But again, it's not like it's a maturity model where teal is your goal necessarily. It depends on your context, your organization. It might be, it might not be. But what we do want to do is find where's that area where what we're trying to do from an organizational goal perspective, structure, agility perspective, that culture enables that. So, if we look here, we have one response in red. I'm sorry for you. Multiple responses up here. In amber, we have several in orange, which doesn't surprise us. A lot of larger organizations today, a lot of corporations are in orange. A couple in that green zone, which is usually what we're looking for. And it looks like we even have some in teal. So that's really great to see.
And by the way, for those people who joined late, we have posted in chat the link to this survey. So you can still jump into chat, click the link, and you'll be able to participate in the survey.
So, Dave and Paul, is this trend a common trend that you see with past
Yes.
experiences?
Yes, this is normal. And again, with this large group, it normalizes around 2.5.
So let's jump back into what we had. And again, as Paul said, what you saw there, that's very, very common. So on average with this group, we're about in that orange area, which we probably have a lot of people from large organizations, and that's very, very common. And again, it depends on the context. People might be thinking, well, on my team, it feels pretty red or amber right now. My organization might be shifting a little over here, but again, organizations are made up of a lot of these different types of archetypes.
So something I forgot to mention is the book from Frederick Laloux, Reinventing Organizations, is where the models have been originated. So the next model that we share, and those are the 2 basic models, so you don't have to worry that we're going to overwhelm you with models. But the second model that we meshed into this is from Geert Hofstede, Cultures and Organizations. And this model has been around for a very long time. I think it started in the 60s or even earlier. And it started with cultures globally in countries. And so Geert Hofstede, and I think his brother or partner, or I don't know, son maybe, Geert. So it's Geert and Geert Hofstede and Michael Minkoff. came out with these characteristics to characterize cultures. And we looked at these characteristics, they're in green, and we said, well, in corporations that we work with, we really have to bring in some extra characteristics. What they came up with isn't enough to characterize what we work day to day. So we have the basics in green and the Dave and Paul editions in orange. And by the way, these green-orange colors have nothing to do with the low model. And that's maybe a note for ourselves, Dave. We may want to change the colors going forward so as not to confuse people. So let's go really quickly through these. And as we go through them, pay attention because we're going to have another quiz at the end. And so we'll start with the first one, which is power distance. This is the extent to which power is distributed in the organization. The second one, individualism versus collectivism. This is the degree to which members take their identity from the organization. The next one is high-low uncertainty avoidance. This is the degree to which uncertainty, ambiguity, change, and risk are avoided versus tolerated within the organization. Short and long-term orientation, the length and focus of time horizon for visioning, strategizing, and planning. The next one is restrained indulgence. And this is the degree to which individuals' desires, impulses, and diversity are controlled and managed by the organization or within the organization. And then I gotta move my notes so I don't mislead you. We added technology. Is it opportunistic or adaptable? So the definition is the degree to which technology is integrated within the organization. We also added process. Is it rigid or is it flexible? The definition is the degree to which process dictates work in the organization. And the third one we added, for now, because this is an evolving model, is product. Do we know best? Or do we cooperate and collaborate with the customers? So the degree to which products and services are co-created with the customers and users. So these are the characteristics. We won't go through all of them. We'll focus on three. And we'll focus on the power, the risk/uncertainty avoidance, and technology. Those are the three we'll focus on. And again, we'll ask you to vote. And the way you'll be voting is the same way we just did. We have the 5 predominant models. And so we're asking you, where does each characteristic fall in your organization, right? And again, you kind of have to squint your eyes and say, okay, I got the general culture, but if we look at each characteristics, where does it fall? So let's go to the first one and do it as an example. This is the power distance, the high-low power. So on the far left, you have very high power. Power is the name of the game in the red organization. And on the far right, you have low power distance. And so in this culture, in the teal culture, you'd be seeking equal distribution of power, democracy, equality, participation, very localized decision-making. And so I've given you the 2 extremes, and then you have to kind of judge, okay, based on those, where does power distance fall in my organization? Does it go to the left towards red, or does it go to the right toward teal, or is it somewhere in the middle, like orange, where it's balanced kind of in between? Or are we tending towards green, or are we tending towards yellow? So again, it's a 5-point scale on power distance. And as you're doing the power distance, I'll go to,
Can you share the link again, please? There's some people that joined late also, and just have the link fresh at the bottom.
Yep, just shared it.
Thank you.
did it come up?
1 second. There we go.
Thank you. All right. So the second one is uncertainty, right? Do we avoid it or do we tolerate it? And in low risk, low uncertainty cultures tend to be more emotional. They minimize occurrence of the unknown and unusual circumstances and proceed with careful changes, step-by-step planning, very meticulous, implementing new rules and new laws and regulations very carefully. So again, that would be on the left. On the right, we have the high risk, high uncertainty cultures that tolerate it very well. They tend to accept and feel very comfortable on unstructured situations, changeable environments, and they try to have as few rules as possible. And they tend to be more pragmatic and tolerant of the change. So that's again on the far right, teal. And then you have to kind of judge, are we kind of in the middle, a little bit towards the left, a little bit towards the right? Again, it's the Likert scale, 1 through 5. The third one is technology. Let me get to it so I don't mislead you. So for technology, we're looking at the two extremes of low and high. On the low side, the left side, technology is viewed sometimes as a necessary evil, a bastard child, or an unwanted overhead. And it is exploited for pure profit. High technology cultures on the far right embrace newest technologies. They integrate them and adaptively into the organization as much as possible, viewing it as a cornerstone of their products and service offerings. So that's again on the far right for the teal. And again, because it's a 5-point scale, you have to kind of judge where are we or where are you on the technology characteristics.
Good. So I see a lot of results coming in. So if we look at each of these broken down, the power distance, we see there are a lot of organizations that are more in that amber and orange, a couple in the green. So you could see that, some of our folks here working in organizations or maybe their departments are a little bit more command and control structure where, power is kept to the few. And if we were more orange or green, that power becomes more and more distributed. So you can see from the folks on the phone on this webinar where they kind of lie, and it leans more towards that amber and orange area at a 2.4. For uncertainty avoidance, it looks like there's a little bit in the red. So some organizations are very risk averse and uncertainty averse. They need to know everything. And we see in waterfall, that's one of the things where I need to know everything up front before I could go forward. And really that's a false assumption or false way of thinking. If we think about our agile practices where we do little things at once and check frequently, that's actually a better risk avoidance structure, but it's a mindset shift that we need to, and that's part of the culture. We see that on average, it looks like it's falling about in that amber category where most organizations are more risk averse. We do see a big jump in the orange, and then it trails off in a bit. So a lot of the folks here are working for areas that are risk averse or uncertainty avoidance. And then technology starts to shift a little to the right, which seems about right based on what we said, what we've seen before. So it's falling about in the orange category for the most part, but a lot of organizations do see technology as a product service enabler, something that should be adaptable and provides value to all around. So on average among these three, we're at the the border between amber and orange, which is what we've seen before. And you can kind of see overall where the things lie. So, technology is a little bit more over to the right towards green and teal, and the power distance and uncertainty avoidance are a little to the left, which is very common. Why we pick those three, because we see those three have a big impact on culture shifts and some of the things that we've seen related to culture.
So Dave, quick question on the technology one. If we would like our technology to be a lot more adaptable, or us to be able to adapt very quickly with technology, for example, a pandemic, adapt and use technology for that, we would want to see that be a lot more to the green and blue, a lot more to the right as we see it, right? That third one, if you click on it, would be more to the right instead of in the center. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes. And you can see there's a shift going on there, but certainly if we want to be able to adapt very quickly, I mean, think about the promise of Agile, being able to turn on a dime for a dime, to be able to pivot very quickly and very cheaply. If we have tightly coupled architectures, if we have a lot of technical debt, if we have a lot of things like that, we won't be able to do that. And frankly, those things are part of the culture. The way we code, the way we value, is it, lines of code being done, or the quality, or we focus on minimizing code. That's all culture. And that's something that really inhibits a lot of organization from being small a agile and being able to adapt really quickly.
But in the 20 minutes we have left, you and Paul will give us a solution to it all. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll try. But yeah, we're running out of time, so we have to move on. Next, because of time, we're going to skip some things like ADKAR. ADKAR stands for awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And that helps us on our Agile journey. And the key to remember here is that for a culture to change, we really need to bring everyone along. You can't just have a subset change the culture. You may want to start with a subset, change the culture in the team, in the department, and then grow it from there. But eventually, everybody has to go be along for the journey. And so through ADKAR, awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement, we can start building that momentum in the culture change. But as everybody knows, on any journey, there will be obstacles. And so as we're going through it, we'll go through some examples. Again, we're just going to focus on our 3 example characteristics: power, risk avoidance, and technology, because that's where we started. As you go through it, you may want to take some notes because you may see different obstacles. And then we're going to talk about interventions, and you may see your own different interventions. So take some notes for yourself to help you in the future. So let's start with the first one. And we're going to talk about the obstacle of low empowerment and what can we do about it. So for low empowerment, again, using ADKAR, coaching and training are very one common intervention, making people aware of what empowerment is, how it works, and then helping them by ongoing coaching and feedback. Another intervention is delegation. And there is a 7 levels of delegation model that we'll share with you if you haven't heard of it. And most of you probably have heard of it. And then the third intervention, and again, we're just overviewing, is to create those feedback loops and reinforce the behaviors that are conducive to empowerment and delegation. So Dave, you want to share the 7 levels of delegation?
Yeah, and empowerment is a big issue, especially for this group with special interest group being leadership. We're coaching leaders or we're leaders ourselves. So this is an area where the leadership really has direct impact on the culture. So one of the things, if you have an area with low empowerment, is to play delegation poker, 7 levels of delegation, where you work with the leader and say, okay, what are the things that we're doing in your area, or what are the decisions that you're involved in, and what are some things that we can do at different levels to be able to maybe shift some of that to the people closer to the work. So, in number one, where we're telling them, that's the leader saying, do this, do that. I need you to do X, Y, and Z, and here's how I want it. See if there's anything on there where we can maybe shift that a little left. So from telling, you have selling them, where it's, yeah, it's my idea, but I'm trying to help them to understand the why. I'm selling them on why this needs to be done. At least get them started thinking, so that we're starting to build up their knowledge and not just spoon feeding them everything. And then from there, there's consulting, where I'm gonna consult with my direct reporter or my folks. I'm gonna make the final decision, but I'm gonna consult with them. And then as you delegate more and more, it becomes an agreement model where we're kind of collaborating and collectively agreeing on what needs to be done and how it'll be done. And then you notice in the pictures that that manager picture starts to kind of fade away and the other person gets a little bigger. That's where it's advising, where the direct reporter or person starts making the decision, but that manager is an advisor. And then it gets to inquiry, where that person gets to make the decisions, but the manager just kind of stays informed, or maybe asks a little bit about it to make sure it's on track, till finally you get to a stage where I don't even need to be involved in this. You're good to go. You're a decision maker. And this is a good way of helping leaders understand what are some small baby steps you could take to maybe start getting things off your plate. We all hear managers, directors, leaders saying, they don't have enough time. They're in meetings all the time. They're busy. Well, here's a good way of freeing up some of your time so you could focus on those higher impact, higher value things that only you can do. And as we go through this, even if they say something as, well, I'm only willing to sell or consult on this piece, as you do that, and as these people prove themselves and the model starts working, you could revisit this and say, look, this has been working. How about we shift a little more to the right and more to the right on these things? So this is an exercise that you can do with leaders or even your leader to see, are there areas where you can start delegating some of that, start increasing that power distance where you're enabling people closest to the work to do some of that. And this whole delegation poker tool is available on Management 3.0. You can see over on the side, there's a tool there. I just recently played this with my manager to help them see that they were getting involved a little bit too much and they need to step back. So this is a great tool for leaders at all levels to understand where they're able to let go a little bit and build that confidence so they can continue to let go.
All right, so now we're going to go to our obstacles. The second one is low psychological safety. And so some of the recommended interventions that we have, and again, this is an overview: training, coaching, and mentoring, and then shifting and reframing perspective. The idea is to help people see things in a different light so that they can come up with different approaches. One of the key things to remember here is that trust is a two-way street. Trust goes both ways. So if you want to build trust, you have to start trusting more. And this goes throughout. A good exercise would be team building to develop the trust within the team. And you can have multiple teams collaborating on the team building. And then another strong intervention is celebrating problems and failures. What that means is not just celebrating successes, but celebrating problems. Now, this is sometimes a difficult one to understand, What it basically means is that a problem and a failure are an opportunity to learn. And so you should celebrate that opportunity, especially if you capture the problem or failure before it gets out to the customer. But even if it does get out to the customer, still you found it. You can fix it now. You can learn from it. So you should celebrate it.
Yeah, and Paul, let me share a quick example. So when we were at Capital One, we did a scrum of scrums, and people would share what their teams are working on and what the impediments were, and all our leadership were there. And people were afraid to raise impediments because when they did, the leadership would react in, why is that happening? Who's responsible for that? Let's get to the bottom of this. So we coached them to say, hey, when someone raises an impediment, first thing I want you to do is say thank you. Now we could do something about it. Because do you want them to raise these issues? Well, of course, we need to know about these things so we can do them. Okay, well, you're creating an environment where people are afraid to raise those. So at the next scrum of scrums, when they raise something, one of our VPs said, thank you. I appreciate you bringing that up. Now we could do something about it. Let's touch base right after this and I'll see how I could help you. And then all of the other teams are like, wow, well, I have an impediment too. Can you help me? And it changed the culture just through that little piece of changing the word. So that shift and reframe is very powerful.
Great example, Dave. Thank you.
And our third and final example is technical debt. In technical debt, I think everybody knows it is where while features are going out, some of the things like refactoring are getting left behind. And so over time, the quality of the product deteriorates. So what can we do about it? Well, we need to educate everybody on the impacts of technical debt. While most people in technology understand technical debt and its impacts, bringing that to the business and to management and really showing them what the true long-term impacts are is very valuable, and people overlook it because they assume everybody knows. Well, they don't. You need to make it explicit and saying, look, if we don't start addressing this technical debt, the quality will degenerate, we'll have more problems in the field, it'll cost us money. Second intervention, it's an investment. You got to invest in removing debt and refactoring. It may not bring an immediate reward or return on your investment, but it will in the end. And again, you got to keep educating. And the third one is, for example, changing coding behaviors. How? Coding standards, a more robust definition of done. But in the end, you got to get everybody on board who's involved in creating the debt and help them understand and help them be part of the solution of changing those behaviors. In the end, it's always going to be a balanced approach. You're not going to get a perfect change the first time, but as you experiment with the different interventions, you'll start seeing results.
Yeah, and Paul, when we talk about this is culture, right? Does a culture and leadership value getting things out the door quickly just to hit deadlines, or do they value quality? And it's a behavior change. This is part of your culture. And it starts with the leadership, and it starts with on what we value as a group or organization. So again, we were just able to scratch the surface on culture. So hopefully this gave you a lot more information. As Paul said, we are working on a longer term workshop to dive into much more detail, but hopefully this gave you some thoughts on how to look at your organization, its culture, some of the obstacles that you might encounter, how to kind of assess or look at where you are now to inform what you want to focus on. But we talked about, what culture is, the fact that you can't just put practices on top of a broken culture. It's like trying to install something that isn't compatible with your operating system. It's not going to work. We talked about the Lalo model and the Hofstede model. And I saw there was a question about, could someone share the books on our website that I'll share in a second. There's copies of these slides along with different resources, the books, the delegation game, and a bunch of other resources, all totally free, no sign up or anything needed, but there are a lot more resources there. And one other thing that we didn't talk about today that we typically would if we had more time would be kind of our culture shift model, which we call the ABCs of culture change, where you start by clarifying the as is, looking at the to be, mapping out a course, bringing that down into small experiments, finding what your first step is, and just kind of repeating that cycle using an agile approach to shift the culture. So that's kind of what we covered today, and hopefully that gave you a flavor for understanding the impact of culture on an organization, as well as what you might be able to do to kind of see where you are in your organization and how you can start nudging that forward, especially from a leadership perspective. So as I mentioned, we do have a website that has a bunch of this information and other resources. It's cultureforagility.com. So if you want to grab the information on the books or other resources and links in there, there's a ton of stuff out there. So feel free to grab what you want on there.
And we'll be posting the slides, plus I'm sure that Max will post a recording. Once we have the link to the recording, we can post it on there too. And we look forward for you to sign up for our longer workshop. It's still in the works. It's still not ready because we have so much material, we have to cut it down to something reasonable. We can't have a week-long workshop. So thank you, everyone. Yep.
Absolutely. But wait, I mean, we might have time for a question.
All right.
I mean, about 3 minutes, not much, but if someone was urging to ask something very quickly, don't have that much time, but just I wanted to ask if you would want to unmute.
So let
question.
me address the questions because I like it. What's the first thing, right? A lot of times people want to know what's the first thing. And this is very difficult because each organization, each culture is different. There is no one size fits all. Uh-oh, I'm echoing. Hello. And so what you need to do really is kind of step back and look at those characteristics, right? The power, the risk avoidance, all those that we shared, and say, where is our biggest opportunity? And then once you understand the opportunity, get others involved. You can't do it yourself. You know, like I said, everybody eventually has to be involved. So find some people who are like-minded and create maybe a working group or a community of practice or whatever within your organization and start discussing it. Start saying, okay, what is our culture? Where is the biggest opportunity? What can we do about it? And try something, like I said, experiment. And then once you do the experiment, see what the results are. Dave, you have something you would like to share?
Yeah, and just to add on to what you're saying, Paul, if you can find a leader in the organization, someone that's respected, that's willing to take a chance, you'll get great momentum. If you're able to work with them, find some low-hanging fruit and gain some momentum, their peers, especially in a red and amber organization, they're going to look and say, hey, why is that guy getting all the accolades and they're getting stuff done? I want to do some of that too. So, you know, leverage some of that competition and the other negative stuff to actually do something positive.
In other words, be sneaky about it.
Whatever it takes to get it done, right?
Exactly.
Paul? Whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Oh, so as we always say, we start on time, we end on time, but I just wanted to say a quick thank you to Dave and Paul. This presentation, it was incredible how I started to visualize cultures with the trends and everything happening. And it made me feel very much as I am not alone. I am not alone in what I'm experiencing. Okay, there are tons of people out there, and we just have to first visualize where we're at, and then it'll be awesome to have you back to talk about your culture shift stuff. Once you sort it out, it can trend it down to an hour because a lot of people need that support and guidance in how to do the culture shift. But I'd like to say round of applause to Paul and David from Chicago. Thank you for coming out here. Everyone's clapping. and
Thank
everything.
you.
And just as important, we wouldn't have this if there weren't people to attend it. So shout out to everybody that joined from Texas, Fort Worth, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston. The majority of people are still from Austin. So way to go, Austin. Always showing up and you're here. Then we had South Carolina, Chicago, Paul and Dave, a couple of the folks. Buntoon, New Jersey. That's a first. They didn't hear about that one yet. Denver, Oakland, New York City, St. Louis, Missouri, and internationally from Nigeria and Canada. Thank you for joining, folks. Okay. The recording will be posted. We'll send you a link. I'll send you a link also to the site that they sent, all on a Meetup. So if you signed up on a Meetup, you're going to be there. And last but not least, let's do a Brady Bunch picture. Everybody, turn on your camera, okay? Turn on your camera. Yes, it's 1 o'clock, but you're gonna be late for your next meeting because we wanna connect here. Turn on your camera. I see people, yes, I see more and more cameras. Lorna, Red, where are you? Peter, yes, you turned it on. So you know what I'll have to do? 2 pictures because so many of you showed up. All right, are you ready? Are you looking sharp? You looking presentable? Yeah, I know, these Zoom times, like you don't even like, get dressed for stuff. Okay. Now, hold on. I took the one picture and there's so many of you. I've got to take 2 pictures. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. Okay. There you go. Okay. And I'm going to take my second picture right now. Thank you. Just keep on smiling, folks. Keep on smiling. Okay. And I've got you down. All right. Thank you for showing up, folks. Have a good Friday and weekend. We'll see you the next time. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, folks. Thanks for joining.
Hey, Max, thanks for having us. This is great.
Oh, Dave, Paul, thank you so much for joining. And I was really seeing everybody's feedback and everything is just brilliant because then you see it and you're like, yes. And I'll just say that it's almost as if that is part 1 and part 2 is like, okay, if I want to move to the right of that, right? If I want to be more adaptable with my technology, if I want to be more like not command and control, how do I do that? But of course, that's a lot to package.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's a good idea. That's excellent because we have that ABC model and we could have just an hour on the ABC model. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I think we can certainly do that or provide the canvas that we're talking about and kind of walk through that.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
There you go. I've got your word on the recording also that you will be back to the Agile Austin Leader SIG to present your culture shift ABC model.
Yep.
I mean, I got you. I got your tape right here. No pressure. Like we don't have to set a date. Don't set a date.
Very
but
cool.
Thanks
very
for
cool.
showing up. Thank you, Paul and Dave. Appreciate it. Well, spot
Bye-bye.
on.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
All right. Take care. Welcome.